Welcome. We're getting ready to go over lessons 121 through 124. How did your children do with fractions last week? We have two more lessons this week geared towards fractions, and then we start the reviews and assessments, and then you'll be done. So let's find out what materials are needed before we get started. You'll need the fraction chart along with those individual pieces, a dry erase board, the fraction card deck, a part whole circle set, the math card game book, along with the basic number card deck, tiles, centimeter cubes, the place value cards, the abacus, and the end of the year assessment one, which is found behind the child's worksheets. Lesson 121, making one with fractions. Just like all of last week, we're going to do it again this week. Have your child make the fraction chart using the smaller pieces. I probably should have mentioned last week, Right Start does sell a fraction puzzle. It's a nice thick wooden piece fraction set. The board itself has a raised lip. So when the fraction sits in, it's coming up against the board. So it keeps it all contained, which is really nice. But like I said, it's more of a luxury. But if you like wooden things, you like the puzzles, you're going to be working with fractions for a long time, that might be something you may want to consider investing in. For the activity at the bottom of the page, making one, you can use your dry erase board or you can use your part whole circle set. You're going to put something in there like this. We'll have one in the hole. We put 3/4, and now we're asking the child to see what we need to add to 3/4 to equal 1. Well, they have their fraction chart. They can look at their fourths. They could either pull out the 3/4 and see that they have 1/4 left. They might just count up 1, 2, 3, and then notice there's 1/4 left. They may just only have to look at it and know what the answer is. So let them do what they need to do to find the answer. Also, look in the materials for this lesson. It has specific fraction cards that you need, so you will want to pull these out to have them ready. Those fraction cards that you pulled out, you're going to lay them face up all over the area where you're working, and then your child needs to look and find pairs that equal 1. But each pair has to be different. So they see a 2/3, they know they're going to need to get a 1/3. Or if they see a 3/4, they know they're going to need a 1/4. Don't give them or tell them any kind of rules for this, all right? Let them refer to their fraction chart, as it says in the explanation. Such procedures reduce this game to an exercise in a meaningless computation game, unrelated to fractions. We don't want to do that. We want them to see the fractions. Looking at their fraction chart, they'll be able to know what fraction they need. Just encourage them to use their chart. The game concentrating on 1 is really similar to what they're doing, except this time they'll place their cards face down so they can't see them. So it's like a memory game. They'll flip over a card. They see, like in the example, there's a 1/5. They know they're going to need a 4/5. They flip over a card. Woo, it's the 4/5. Lucky flip, right? They get to keep the cards. If they have the 1/5 and they flip over a card and it's 2/3, nope, not going to work. They flip the cards back over. It's the next person's turn. So in comparing, I just sat there. Sorry, I should have done this sooner. I just compared the cards needed for the concentrating on 1 game to the cards that you had to pull out of the pile for lesson 121. They are the same. So you will be using the same cards. The only difference this time for the game is you'll flip them over. Lesson 122, having fractions. This is technically the last lesson of learning new material in this level. Everything after this is going to be reviews and assessments. They're going to learn about the halves, like what's half of one? It's a half. What's half of a half? It's a fourth. What's half of a fourth? It's an eighth. They're going to build this chart. And remember, we're just introducing them to this. They're going to have lots more opportunity and practice to work with the fractions. So if they don't grasp the concept right away, it's all right. They're going to get to do this again in level B. They'll progress and do more in level C. It keeps progressing. They keep building on it. This is just a basic introduction. Usually you'll find that at the end of the levels, those little last few lessons are just a basic, quick introduction into something they're going to do more of in the next level. It's kind of like an appetizer, getting their feet wet. So enjoy this lesson. You may want to encourage your child that this exercise also is preparing them for reading a ruler in inches. This lesson ends with a game. It's Fraction War. It's F7 in the math card game book. This is not your typical really long war game because you're only using 34 cards. You're only using the halves, the fourths, the eighths, and the ones. That's it. And they're going to have practice seeing which fraction is bigger. They'll build the chart. That's what I love about those individual pieces. So in the lesson, they had the whole, the halves, the fourths, and the eighths. Don't destroy that because you're going to need that for the game. Or if you run out of time and you can't get the game done, fine. Put those pieces maybe in their own little baggie to make it easier the next time you go to play this game, you can pull those pieces out. If you end up not having time to play this game in this lesson, take those fraction pieces that they built, the whole, the half, the fourth, and the eighth little table, and put those together in a place by themselves. So when you do go to play this game, you already have those pieces ready. You just have to reassemble the fractions and it'll make it go a little bit quicker. Lesson 123, Counting and Cardinality Review. It's a big word, cardinality. Anyway, look at the extras. Let's do that first before we do anything else. Talks about how counting is introduced as a quantity naming activity, always based on place value. So it's not that we're opposed to counting, but it's not just a memorization of numbers. They really understand what these numbers mean. Secondly, look at the second one. There are specific lessons here that are review lessons for the end of the year assessments. You have some options. You could either do these lessons in order, or you could choose to take these review lessons and do them first, and then go back and do the assessments. Or as it says here, then the assessments may be presented as a single final test. These lessons are lessons similar to what they've done throughout the year. So even like at the beginning, the number of objects, and you're going to put about 20 to 30 tiles in a big heap, and then they're going to have to figure out how many there are. They've done this before. But like in anything, okay, they're young. They may not remember. And it's okay if you need to guide them, right? Guide them. Don't tell them, just guide them. Maybe say, hey, do you remember when we did this? How do we organize the tiles to make it easier to know how many there are? I think it's interesting in the comparing numbers, they're going to use the centimeter cubes versus the tiles. I don't know if it's one of those like your eyes, it can be deceiving because you see the tiles are bigger, so you think there might be more. It's really getting them to have to think about what they are seeing. The part in the number names where you're going to say number and then they have to tell you the next two numbers in order. That's key. It's important. That is something they'll be doing in the assessment in lesson 124. So make sure they understand this and are comfortable doing this. Now, this lesson is end with a game of go to the dump. It's always a fun game. I find that even after my children know those answers, just like Go Fish, it's just a nice, fun game you could continue playing. Last lesson for this week, lesson 124, counting and cardinality assessment. The assessments are considered as tests. These assessments can be found in the back of the child's worksheets. It says here that the child's to record their work. I understand if you have a child who's not able to record their own work yet. I had a couple of those myself. They weren't quite ready at this age. It's okay if you want to write it for them. Just when they tell you the answer, just write that answer in. It's all right. Then you're going to just go through these different problems, ask some questions. They're going to fill this in on the worksheet or you'll fill it in for them. I want to point out in number 5 to make sure you say the word the, as in have the child write the 2 numbers that come after 12. There's a difference because you could say write 2 numbers that come after 12. Well, that could be any number. That could be 565. That could be 79. So when you tell them to write the 2 numbers that come after 12, that's being specific. And you're going to want them to say 13 and 14. Problems 7 through 11 says to make assessment notes as the child does the work. But it doesn't tell you. So here's the page. If you turn the page over, on the back, it gives you space to make your notes. So don't miss that. I mean, it's okay if you want to get another piece of paper and write on it, you could do that too. But I wanted to make sure you guys saw that it was on the back side because I may not have looked on the back side. The child is going to complete problems 1 through 6. And that's everything on the front. One of the things about making the notes, these are areas that you know your child may struggle a little bit on, have a little weaker time, it's not one of their strengths. Remember, most of the stuff is going to be addressed again, but it also gives you some ideas of some things maybe you could focus on for your break. I know some of you go straight from one level to another level, so that's different. But those of you that will be taking time off between levels, keep an eye out on those areas that they can use some strengthening in. Play some of the math card games with them. Come up with some activities, maybe. I know that the internet is full of some different fun type of activities to help reinforce certain concepts. So keep an eye out. That's what's nice with these assessments. We do end this assessment with a new game. So in the math card game book, this is N31. It's called Race to 10 Game. So this game calls for one of the appendix pages that's in the math card game book. It's page 5. You're going to use this here. So make a copy. All right. Make a couple copies and then cut it out. You're going to pull out a specific amount of 0 cards, 1s, and 2s. And then each person's going to need a marker, a game marker. So you could pull a game marker out of a different game that you guys have, or maybe you have little things around the house that you could use. You could use the centimeter cubes. You just want to distinguish though the different players. But you take these cards, like I said, you have the 0s, 1s, and 2s. You shuffle them. You're going to lay them face down. You flip the card over, and then the player will move that amount of spaces. Unless they have a 0, then they're not going anywhere. Whoever gets to the end of the strip first is the winner. And if you run out of cards to flip over, just reshuffle and start again. And you do have to end on that last dot exactly. So if you're at the end, and you get a 2, and all you need is a 1 to get there, you have to wait to get a 1. Remember, if you're doing a 4-day week, you do have one extra day this week. So you can go over some of those areas that you felt your child was a little weak in. You can review either through the lessons or you could use the games that are suggested in those lessons. If you find that your child did just fine, they don't need to go over anything, then you could always ask them to pick a game, one of the math card games that y'all have played, and spend some time just for fun playing the game. We are done for this week. Can you believe we are like almost done? Like really, really done. There are only 8 more lessons in this book. And they're not lessons as in they're going to learn new things. There are reviews and assessments. So I hope you are enjoying your time with your child, getting to spend time and see them learning. Ah, I kind of miss those days. I'm enjoying it with my grandchildren, but I do miss it with my own children. Anyway, join me next week as we go over lessons 125 through 128. Until then.